Okay, you think this
Okay, you ready? Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out to see us today. We all are always excited when our friends come out to greet us and see us. Thank you for your support, and we appreciate it so much. So today is a special evening with Sherlock Holmes. And we don't know why we love the man, so do we? But we do. So Sherlock Holmes is a man who definitely would not want a warm and fuzzy introduction because he was known for being an extremely scientific and intelligent detective. And we first met this man in the novel called A Study in Scarlet, where we learn how complex, how moody, and extremely untidy he was. And you know what, despite all that, we continued this weird relationship with him for 4 novels and 56 short stories. His character intrigued us, and that's why we're probably here today. And so, since we're so intrigued by him, we want to know more. And this is where we can do that today. We can find out more about the man who really does not need any introduction, but we know him as the pipe smoker, the violin lover, and he had a few more other side things that he liked to do. But he doesn't need any introduction. I present Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that relatively kind introduction. The first thing I'd like to do is ask for to join me in a round of applause for our Mrs. Hudsons. We have 2 of them because it took so much work to set up 221B. So could I please have Shelley and Tanya stand up and their hospitality is extraordinary. I would say it's superior to my landlady at 221B in London, but that might get me into trouble. So I will just suffice it to say there is extraordinary hospitality that they've offered. I'm grateful to follow in the footsteps of some very interesting people who have graced this lectern. I understand, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that Mr. Edgar Allan Poe of Richmond, Virginia, was a pretty prior speaker here in the Lancaster Community Library. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because Mr. Poe has a strong connection with both myself and with one of the people I'm going to talk about, the literary executor of my works, Sir Arthur, or Dr. Arthur Conan Doyle. And you probably recognize that Mr. Poe was the initiator of the first consulting detective, C. Auguste Dupin, Murders in the Rue Morgue, some other stories that he wrote concerning his detective. And even Dr. Watson, my esteemed colleague, I will say, and also the man who shared for a long time our rooms at 221B Baker Street, he compared me to him. Now, I don't think that's fair. I will say that I am far superior as a consulting detective to C. Auguste Dupin. He was an amateur, and that was my profession, to be a consulting detective, and that's why I'm a little reluctant to compare myself to him. But nonetheless, Mr. Poe initiated the format, the genre of consulting detectives, and I think I epitomized it, and I think I was the most extraordinary of all of those kinds of characters. As they say, often duplicated, never exceeded, and that certainly was the case with myself. Now, I want to mention a couple of folks who are important in the life of myself, and that would be Dr. John Watson, and then a man who I am reluctant to bring up, but I will anyway, Sir Arthur, Dr. Conan Doyle. I can't develop much of sympathy or enthusiasm for a man who tried to throw me off the Reichenbach Falls, as he did, simply because he didn't want to write about me anymore. But that's, nonetheless, I will mention and discuss in some detail Dr. Conan Doyle. But first, let me talk about Dr. John Watson. I heard someone say, "Where's Dr. Watson?" Well, Dr. Watson can't be with us tonight. He's engaged in Doctors Without Borders. That was a special charity that he supported. He was known for his he is known for his willingness to accompany first the Royal Army to Afghanistan, where he was wounded in battle. He was a proven, very courageous frontline doctor, and so he's out of the country right now. He may be down in South Africa, I'm not sure. He doesn't always tell me where he's going or what he's doing, but we try to keep in touch, even though he abandoned me for his wife. And I think he abandoned me for a second wife as well. But I'm not going to go, I'm not going to have any of those recriminations. I'm simply going to try to state the facts. Now, you may ask, why aren't you speaking with an English accent? Of course you're English. You may ask, why am I speaking with an American accent? Thank you. I was afraid you were as slow as a carriage full of Scotland Yard detectives there for a minute, but you picked up on the case, and that's going to hold you in good stead, because we're going to need your assistance later. I have that feeling in my script and in my heart. But let me say, you've got to remember that Sherlock Holmes was the actor of the age. Only Irene Adler, that woman, was able to surpass him in playing a role. So when I'm in the United States, I adopt an American accent. When I'm in England, I adopt an English accent. I spoke a number of languages. Dr. Watson would have you believe that I was an uneducated person, but I wrote many treatises on music. As previously mentioned, I was a violin player. I am a violin player of some skill. I will not share that with you tonight. It's out of tune, but we'll just hold that in your mind that I'm multifaceted. Dr. Watson, as I said, was extremely brave, indefatigable, He was a man who I could trust implicitly, or I do trust implicitly, to be my able assistant. And he's gotten somewhat of a bad reputation. Certain movies and depictions of him show him as a kind of an amiable bumbler, so just following along in my footsteps. That's not the case. He was extremely capable. He was he built a great medical practice, and he was a kind and conscientious physician who really brought some humanity to my life. And it's been noted that at university I was not a particularly outgoing guy. I wasn't a joiner. But with Dr. Watson in the rooms at Baker Street, I became slightly more human. So, okay. Now, let's go on. So you may know that Dr. Watson was wounded in the wars in Afghanistan. So he was not in the rear with a beer kind of doctor. He was a frontline medic, and he was he definitely was one to treat the wounded on the battlefield, and as a consequence, he was wounded by a bullet, and then had the misfortune his orderly saved, and but he had the misfortune of contracting a very severe fever, and so he was invalided out of the Army Medical Corps. But there was, you will note if you delve into his case files that he's brought to light, he was the man who I called upon to carry the pistol in case of real danger, and he used it with great effectiveness in the case of the Hound, you probably remember, and he also was the first to go out and do and to join us in as we investigated these cases. Okay, so enough about Dr. Watson. Let me now talk about Sir Arthur. Sir Arthur, the literary executor of the Sherlockian opus, was also an excellent physician. He was a well-known ophthalmologist, as a matter of fact, but his practice was wide, and he was an excellent specialist. And then he stumbled upon this ability to edit and collate my writings, and he did that, and actually Dr. Watson's writings, because Dr. Watson was the one who put the stuff down in pen and ink. But so, as I said, I'm not completely enamored with the good Sir Arthur, as he had a love-hate relationship with me, and he got tired of editing Dr. Watson's papers, and he thought that he could do better, so he tried to have Colonel Dr. Moriarty throw me off the falls. And I was not successful because I was a much superior hand-to-hand fighter than Dr. Moriarty. But then Dr. Moriarty also tried to set a very evil assassin on me. Colonel Moran, you may remember him. He was a sort of a Day of the Jackal kind of hired killer. But Dr. Watson put an end to him. Okay, let's move on to other things that Dr. Conan Doyle was involved in. Let me return to Sir Arthur's relationship with Edgar Allan Poe. Sir Arthur believed that Edgar Allan Poe was the preeminent literary person of the 19th century. not because of the excellence of his writing, but rather the number of genres that he was proficient in. If you think that Michael Crichton invented Jurassic Park, you haven't read Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, because The Lost World anticipates in almost every way, except the DNA, a world where dinosaurs still exist. If you think that, say, George MacDonald Fraser invented the historical novel that's based on reminiscence and recollections in the character of Sir Harry Flashman, you're wrong, because Sir Arthur anticipated that as well. Brigadier Gerard is in every way equal to Sir Harry Flashman, except that whereas Flashman was an abject coward who always came out with the honors and the medals, Brigadier Gerard was a brave and a resolute warrior who never got the credit he deserved because he was so totally unaware, unself-aware of what was going on that people just used him to get to their ends. But in any case, that's another genre that Sir Arthur invented and wrote very amusingly and proficiently. So that's why there's a connection between Edgar Allan Poe and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. But enough of those things. Let me read a short passage from Dr. Watson's writings, and then I'm going to ask for your assistance in in trying to track down a very nefarious and underhanded plot that I've recently come to my attention. So I'm going to need, Dr. Watson, as I said, is out of the country, so I'm going to need your assistance. Are you all willing to participate in this kind of activity?
Yes.
Good. Thank you. Okay, let me read a typical introduction to one of Dr. Watson's stories. It was on a bitterly cold and frosty morning, towards the end of the winter of '97, and I was awakened by a tugging at my shoulder. It was Holmes. The candle in his hand shone upon his eager, stooping face, and he told me at a glance that something was amiss. Now the famous words, "Come, Watson, come. The game is afoot. Not a word. Into your clothes and come." 10 minutes later, we were both in a cab, rattling through the silent streets on our way to Charing Cross Station. The first faint winter's dawn was beginning to appear, and we could dimly see the occasional figure of an early workman as he passed us, blurred and indistinct in the opalescent London reek. Holmes nestled in silence into his heavy coat, and I was glad to do the same, for the air was most bitter, and neither of us had broken our fast. It was not until we consumed some hot tea at the station and taken our places in the Kentish train that we were sufficiently thawed. He to speak and I to listen. Holmes drew a note from his pocket and read aloud. Abbey Grange, my dear Mr. Holmes, I should be very glad of your immediate assistance in what promises to be a most remarkable case. It is something quite in your line. Except for releasing the lady, I will see that everything is kept exactly as I have found it. But I beg you not to lose an instant, for it is difficult to leave Sir Eustace there. Yours faithfully, Stanley Hopkins. That's the typical beginning to most of Holmes's stories. The game's afoot, time's wasting, we need to get on with the case. So with that in mind, I'll talk a little bit about a case that's recently come to my attention. I think that's nice. Okay. The Adventure of the Speckled Fan. In April 1883, I was with Dr. Watson, and early one morning, most of our cases began in the morning, as you saw from the Abbey Grange case, when we were interrupted by a young lady, Ms. Helen Stoner, who came in. She was in great fear. She was worried and concerned. Her sister had died earlier, 2 years before, and she was now concerned for her own life. She's living in this case with her uncle, Dr. Royal, a violent doctor of great physical strength. He's a survivor of a formerly wealthy but no longer wealthy, there is almost destitute family there in the hinterlands of England. He was married to Helen's late mother for almost 30 years. He spent a lot of time in the Far East, in India to be exact, and he acquired some strange habits there. I don't know if those habits are going to bear any interest on our case, but they are worth examining, I believe. As I said, Helen's twin sister Julia died about 2 years ago in strange circumstances. Strange circumstances. Her last words were the speckled band. Appropriate music to play at this time. We were on television, but that's okay. Now, Helen is engaged. Now, that has some implications for the estate. Helen is engaged. Her husband-to-be might become the beneficiary for any monies that she might bring. I don't know if that's important, but let's keep that in mind, because as we know from television, money and family relationships are always the first place you start in any detective kind of operation. The house, the estate that she lives in is heavily mortgaged, another financial encumbrance that may have some important role to play in the coming examination. Final note, there's been a number of construction work going on around the estate, partly to enclose the menagerie that was brought back from India. So that may be important as well. So let's keep that in mind. Okay, with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our Mrs. Hudsons, who are going to lead us in a couple of exercises of games and interactions, and please take over.
So, my friends, this is what we have to do. If we're going to solve this case with Mr. Sherlock Holmes, we need to be prepared. And I always start with a good snack first. I need to have my brain power first. So that's what we're going to let you do first, okay? We have a few snacks that's out there. Parents, you can supervise your children. You can get some brain food, come back to your tables. If you're not at a table, just huddle around and join the table, because we're going to play a couple games and the table is going to try to win some clues, okay? So just huddle around at any table, drag your chair there, huddle around, but right now you can get your little snack, okay? We'll give you about 5 minutes to do that.
Sally, now you can stand up.
Cheese and bean no.
Oh my
Yesterday we didn't get to do them right because it rained. Held back today.
I know.
No, I didn't. I just saw you saving it. I'm like,
Extra set of clues you can eat per use.
yeah. We're gonna get in line. I was just thinking.
Not you, baby. You and your
Well, I know. I think there's clues. Like, I think there's a clue in the class with us.
It's not about what it's about, but it's about using clues that have been used before to
Here, coming on.
they're about to name this. What do you think happens? What do you think is too Time that was no piece of time, no piece of time. It's fun to listen. I actually was. Oh yeah. Hold on. And then it was a guy. No. like a little baby that was I think it's a secret method.
Whoa.
I get
It's getting close. Probably 2.5.
Let me check.
We're gonna keep doing this.
I
Yes, girl. Yes, please. 4.5. Always like 4.5. Oh yeah, they get about 4.5. That's like a poisonous brown inside the I'm so proud.
You guys have a big table, so there are all the foods are that everyone here that have that they're all the same, but that way it might be a little bit easier.
But I got my stuff over there. I'm like, oh, you're gonna stop and they count their money and they're right outside my window. And I'm like, can you get away?
Go backwards.
I think other people might want to read too. You guys want to read? No. You have two, and then you want to do three. Oh, she wants to do two. Can you do three? Yes. Yes, we can. You're reading this one. Wait, you have to wait for number two. All right, nice. After that.
I was going to say that about he's the last family was once very wealthy, however, it's all gone.
Okay. Number
You're welcome. You're
They're only 2 years old.
Oh, wow. They're only 2 years old.
Can you put the website?
They got it. Number 5.
All right, everybody has bingo cards. So since we have such a wonderful, huge crowd tonight, we're going to change it a little bit. So kind of each table or each group is going to play bingo. And so what happens is when your table or group wins bingo, just call that out, and that table's going to get a prop for the clue.
They have a bell.
The tables have a bell. If you're in a group, just kind of holler out bingo if you don't have a bell. So then we have 3 bingo games, and then we have 6 trivia questions. So a total of 9 games for 9 prop clues is how we're going to do it. Then after you have everybody played the games and got their prop clues, then you guys can all just kind of everybody work together to try and figure out the solution. And then when the room, everybody thinks they have the solution, just have someone tell us what you think it is. We'll put it up if you're correct, and then everybody's gonna get a prize because everybody's gonna vote.
I'll be third.
Our first bingo game is the Sherlock Holmes characters. So I'm gonna call it out, and then it's also gonna be on the screen. So the first thing you're gonna do is mark your free spot in the middle. Alright, so the first one is O. Godfrey Norton.
Oh, please, move it.
Then we have G. Peter Jones. Then we have I. Ahmed.
I was like, oh.
Then we have O. Barton.
I'm the third. Oh, yeah.
No, we don't have that.
Then me.
G. Hilda Adair.
No, my turn.
I. John Hare.
Oh,
O. Irene Adler. T. Duncan Ross.
We have every single one there is.
I. Freebody.
Oh my god. How can you do everything? Who do you not get?
I don't know.
G. Mrs. Etheridge.
Oh my gosh, are we not getting? There's no way we can't win.
I know.
N. John Swain.
Oh my god! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
O. Alice Turner.
Oh my god!
N. Marivale, an inspector.
Oh my god!
Wait, so
N. Gladstone.
That sounds kind of funny. Glad you must be very happy. Glad must be very happy.
N. John Clay. Alright, the next card is Sherlock Holmes stories. Should be the second one in the group. And mark every space in the middle. Okay, and the first one is G, The Adventure of the Copper Beaches. Then G, The Adventure of the Noble Bachelor. N, The Adventure of the Veiled Lodger. Then I, The Adventure of the Lion's Mane. Sorry. Then N, The Adventure of the Dying Detective. O, The Adventure of the Priory School. N, The Man with the Twisted Lip. B, The Adventure of the Mazarin Stone. I, A Taste of Identity. I, The Disappearance of Lady Frances Carfax. B, The Adventure of the Cardboard Box.
She hasn't done
That's so what?
N, The Adventure of the Great Interpreter.
That's not pretty random. That sounds deadly.
I, The Adventure of the Crooked Man.
I didn't have that. That sounds.
B, A Scandal in Bohemia.
Okay, that's fun.
I, The Adventure of the Musgrave Ritual.
Adventure of the
O, The Sign of Four.
You got it, everyone. I didn't say
G,
it.
The Adventure of the Engineer's Thumb.
Okay, that's the one.
G, The Valley of Fear.
That is odd.
I, The Problem of Thor Bridge. All right, the last bingo game is miscellaneous Sherlock Holmes bingo. All things Sherlock. So mark your free spot in the middle. And the first one is O, photograph. I, the woman.
No woman up in Sorry.
In Adler's demise. I, a study in scarlet.
It's my turn. My turn. It's good. You. Two more. Two more guys.
B, blue dress.
I just want to punch anything.
G, clues.
We don't get to
G, snake.
No.
Little snake.
O, brain addict.
That is
Four.
Oh my god!
O, baboon. O, copper beaches. B, Mr. Brewcastle. I, Baker Street.
Right there, babe.
D, blackmail.
But don't leave it there.
Mycroft.
Okay, good.
All right. Hey, Billy, can you put that down? All right. So now we have 6 trivia questions with 6 more props. So everybody doesn't have a bell because you guys are awesome and a lot of you showed up. We're so excited. So just kind of like raise your hand if you know the trivia question, and Billy and I are gonna make sure we see who raises it first as best we can. Okay? All right. So the first one is multiple choice. What is Watson's official job other than crime solving? A, lawyer, B, doctor, C, clerk. Lady in the glasses.
Someone has to be doctor.
Yes.
You can raise your hand.
Hence the name.
You gotta do your hand.
Watson.
If you know.
All right. The next one is multiple choice. All right. So after we do the multiple choice, raise your hand if you know it. How many? Oh, and if you listen, you'll know the answer to this. How many Sherlock Holmes stories did Arthur Conan Doyle write if you include both novels and short stories? A, 40, B, 80, C, 60. Okay, the red shirt. Okay. Okay. Yes, yes. Any of them, either one. Yes, from, no, the props, yes. Okay, sorry. Alright, if you could wait until after you do the multiple choice, that'd be probably better for everybody to get a chance. So number 3, what is the name of Sherlock Holmes' older brother? A, Myron, B, Mylon, C, Mycroft. Kathy? Yes, correct. Alright, number 4 is multiple choice again. What is the speckled band? A snake, B, a coin, C, a piece of jewelry. Oh! The little girl in the glasses is right. Yeah, you. No. Yes, snake. Alright, number 5 is it true or false? Holmes never utters the phrase elementary, my dear Watson in any of Doyle's books or stories. True or false? Jenny? Yes. Alright, and so last one, and it's multiple choice. Alright, here's the last one. Multiple choice. What does Sherlock Holmes pursue after retiring? A, chess, B, painting, C, beekeeping. Beekeeping. Yeah, okay. Alright, so now all the tables and all the groups will have, all the tables have an envelope with all 25 clues in it, and if you weren't at a table, all the groups got a sheet, a packet with all the clues in it. So what we want everybody to do as a big group is everybody just kind of work together to answer the question. To answer the question, how did Dr. Roylett murder Julia because he's attempting it again? And Sherlock is back. If you want to ask him any questions, just raise your hand. And then when you guys all think you know the answer, Just designate someone to say it, and we'll put it up on the screen if you're right.
We all like split like up my beach.
All right, so if anybody has any questions about the clues, just raise your hand and we will answer them. Yeah. Do you have questions? Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
How do we eliminate Julia was not? Oh, big bitter. Hold on, let me read the
No, but you're going to get cake afterwards.
That's number 2.
If you have any questions from the clues, you can ask them anything about the clues, okay?
About our clues. So we have
Big question is,
These are kids. So we need to figure out where this kid is.
you guys are done figuring that out. Let us know.
Dr. and Mrs. Stone.
This is the most weirdest thing I ever seen. Someone punched out my best friend.
Her mother changed her will back to match. The girls received £2,500. If they don't work or vice versa, the doctors get all the money. Doctor and it's for money else.
Walk back.
Helen's mother, Ellie, works in aviation. He is surly and fights with anyone in the world. Let her send him.
Oh, I think I know what else.
Everyone is afraid of the set. Nobody will work. Julie has just risen. She was only 30 at the time of the Their house is very old and they live only when they live. What's the point special? Julia. There are no doors. So the next door neighbours. Yeah. Got 3 doors. They've got to one. Julia's a plan. They were planning to get married, but never verbally approved They knew that he'd go to sleep. Julia could smell his cigarettes.
Your idea, Jacqueline's idea is that
Julia came to Helen and they talked about her wedding. She So away from doctor. As she was leaving, she asked if Helen had ever fallen or whistled in the early hours of the morning. Helen said no. Julia always heard a whistle in the middle of the night, about 3 in the morning. She was a light sleeper, any noise woke her up. So Julia here, she's living with Helen. Julia went to the room and locked the door. It was windy and the rain pounded against the windows. And then her gurgling scream from her nurse's
You can like film snakes and get them in.
So it's really as she ran to the room, she heard a whistling and a clanging sound. So Ellen ran to Julia's room and Julia screamed. And then they both heard the whistling sound and Julia called out. Clanging metal. Julia's face was white with terror. Her last words were, "It was the band, the splendid band."
Oh, sorry. Give me the lurk. There's no
Already have some The windows were closed with bars. The walls were thick and the door was locked. Nobody could have entered the room.
I would put my money on fighting. Okay.
Helen's uncle asked her to move into Julia's room so he could move her.
That's okay.
Last night, Helen heard the sound from her whistle. It was the same sound Julia heard on the night she had died. I guess she's hearing it now, isn't she? Yeah, she's hearing it now, isn't she? Julia's room found a long rope dangling from the ceiling. It was a bell for
So you guys have about 3 to 4 more minutes, and then Sherlock's going to come up here for any last questions, and then see if you guys have figured it out.
Pulling her conscious of the lady, it was attached to the air, leading next door to the doctor's room. Stuck in there. There were 3 things in the doctor's room: a bed, a wooden chair, and an iron sink. There was a small dish with milk in it.
But here's the thing, those bells are there if she didn't help. And when she pulled them,
Holmes found a small goldfish with a small loop at the end of it.
like baby when
Made a small bracelet.
That's what he because it had never been used before.
Remember, she could smell the cigar smoke from the distance, so there's some passage between them two
Small animal.
I think you're right. I think she pulled it when she dead. Came out.
How did the animal whistle in the quiet?
And she pulled it. Trapped her in there. And then she got trapped and either got eaten.
Retake.
I got the baboon. And now
All right, so we're gonna get Sherlock up here. So if anybody has any last questions to ask him, now's the time. Anybody have any questions?
I think the person that we're worried about, Dr. Boyle, might have told us, but the ozone was other big.
And she wanted to put us
Dr. Sherlock on that one. Yeah.
How did the I know how to take I think they found it. I think she's on a pool. I think she did an auditorium and she was having stage fright then.
Yeah, it was supposed to be for calling for help. But when she visited the big came down, she what happened.
Okay. So, does everybody think they know the answer? Who thinks they know the answer? So, we need you guys to, amongst yourselves, pick one person to tell us what you think the answer is. You guys, are you one of Sherlock? You want to tell the answer? No. Yeah.
All right. Want to say it?
Yeah, we'll start in the back.
You say it.
We're starting from back.
Starting back. Okay. Oh, wait.
I know, but
Okay.
each page, maybe we put a
Sure, yes, we do want to start with you.
There was no want to know how that
We did want to know how Dr. Roylott murdered Chris Julia. We do want to know how Dr. Roylott murdered Julia and what he's trying to do with her sister.
So, as we know, Dr. Roylott spent a lot of time in India, and he brought some exotic pets back with him from his travels. And,
Such as?
well, there was a baboon and a cheetah. Remember that much? And so...
Anything that would need a leash?
None of those two animals, I don't think. But here's the explanation here's what I think happened. So, I believe that Dr. Roylott kept some sort of snake in the safe in his bedroom. And in the middle of the night, he would take it out using the leash, and he would feed it through the vent, which led to Julia's room. The fake bell pull connects to the vent, and the snake would then crawl down the bell pull, and the doctor's hope was that
Are you trying to take away my job?
You gave it to me first. I asked if you were sure.
Well, how did he get the snake back?
So I believe he used the saucer of milk as an incentive. And when he whistled for the snake, they knew a treat was coming and it would return.
Let's see if she's right. I believe Mallory is correct. So, now because everybody did such a great job, in just a second, everybody's going to get up and come over to the prize table and pick out an awesome prize. Everybody did so cool, you get a prize. And there's awesome! And everybody gets a piece of cake that Miss Alice made at the back. But before we get up, we want to thank Sherlock Holmes for coming. And the library is so appreciative that John does this whenever we ask him. Now you guys get to go get your prizes and your cake.
And I love
I'll see you next week at the,
Maybe it's, yeah, I think that's one thing about having three. You're always talking about it. I waste all the time. I wasn't the one that had to answer the question and open the snack or two to go. Like, I was one of the loud annoying people. So yeah, I'm like,
We never thought about the milk dip. And we didn't.
well, so but here's my question. What'd you get?
Anyway, we didn't get. I didn't want.
What did you get?
Yeah, they give you time. He was there.
Whatever.